much about Greek mythology. What was that know-all, see-all that used to predict in riddles? Does anybody remember? The Oracle of Delphi? And she predicted a way that was a good defense for the Persians, up against the Persians. And it took them a while to figure out what she meant. When she meant with ships, what did she say?
Build a wall.
Wooden walls, yeah, wooden walls.
And what was the name?
The Oracle of Delphi. She always talked in riddles. One of the things about the Greeks is they always have there's always a little twist to everything. Anybody ever been a consultant in here? I ran a consulting firm for about 12 years. I often felt like Cassandra. Does anybody know about Cassandra? She always told the truth, but nobody ever believed her. That's what it's like being a consultant. Know about the Trojan Wars? Know some of the characters? Achilles, certainly. Hector. You don't have to know Priam and those guys. Know Odysseus.
Is that the one that started on like one of King's sons kidnapping?
Yeah, Paris. Well, you know, there's a question about that. Did Paris kidnap Helen, or did she go against?
Let's say you went with her, she kidnapped her.
Yeah. That's always been a real question.
What's her name?
His name was Paris. Her name was Helen. The face that launched 1,000 ships. In other words, she was the one that drove out the Trojan War. By the way, you know, it was only up until about 20 years ago that everybody thought that that was all mythology. And then they discovered Troy and went, oh, maybe here's something. Know about the Greek-Persian Wars? Know the guys that were primarily Darius. He was the Persian that was really the guy that was ultimately defeated by the wooden wall and stuff. And his dad was Cyrus. And Cyrus was the one that was in charge when they first started butting heads. The truth is that the Greeks, who remember, weren't really an empire. The Greeks existed as a bunch of city-states because of the terrain. It wasn't until they had an external threat that they were united, and then they didn't stay united.
Doesn't matter if the Delhi have a problem.
No, the Delhi League comes later. Let me get to that in just a second. They unite against the Persians because they start bumping into the Persians. Anybody remember where?
River.
Yeah, right up there by the Dardanelles. Ionia is the name of it. Ionia, yeah. Then they go back to their old way of thinking, and this is when the Athenians decide that Greece ought to be united. And they start uniting under the Delian League. And at first it's supposed to be real democratic, you know, separate states all united into a single unit for the good. But pretty soon Athens starts, you know, keeping most of the money and everything else. And then Sparta and Athens go to war. Well, Sparta and her allies and Athens and her allies go to war. And that's the Peloponnesian War.
Peloponnesian Wars?
Yeah. Primarily with Between Athens and Sparta, but I mean, there was a whole bunch of folks there. We'll get on.
Said it'd be good to know what else on the Aristotle, so I could see like work.
Yeah, the Republic and the allegory of the cave. We'll talk about it. Yeah.
Are we gonna talk too much about the Chinese dynasties and empires?
Well, Matt, there are some in here who would argue that we talk too much about everything.
Well, point taken.
Is that not so? A little bit. That's probably about all you need to know about the Greeks. One other thing you might want to know about the fact that the Greeks, you know, practiced not only democracy, but tyranny and everything else. They thought tyranny was just great, remember? It didn't have that bad connotation it does today. As we move up, we find that the Roman Empire, or the Greeks, they kind of fall into disarray a little bit. Then we have the northern kingdom in Macedonia. We find the rise of one of what people consider one of the greatest generals of all time. His name was Al the Great. He managed to conquer most of his known world.
Wasn't it said that when he ran out of places to conquer, that he literally sat down and
Tried.
wept?
He didn't have any more places to conquer. Hence, we still have an awful lot of Alexandrias around. No, he didn't make it to Alexandria, Virginia.
Well, did you know we get though?
Yeah, he may after all. We know.
No, but like you make it through because we named it.
And of course, one of his main conquests was Egypt. And we see a remnant of that hangs on until the 1950s. What was that? Do you remember? All of the leaders, all of the pharaohs and everybody else were Greek. Cleopatra was a Greek, for heaven's sakes, because he put that line on the throne and they stayed there.
Until about 1950, right?
Yeah, 1952 or 4.
I can't remember his name.
Camel Abdel Nasser was his name.
Nasser, I was going to say Nasser.
Yeah. I don't know where I use this term or not, or I use this definition or not. If I started talking about collective killing for a collective cause, what would I be talking about? Think about it. Collective killing for a collective cause. What is that? That's kind of a limited outlook. Yeah, I mean, but no, collective killing for a collective cause. How about war?
Yeah.
Just thought I'd throw that out, you might see it again. All right. Talking about the Middle East. If we look at the Middle East, we find that there was really only one monotheistic society in all of the ancient Middle East. What was that?
Jews.
Judaism, exactly. There were a few more. Of course, the one that comes to mind today, the one that really changed a lot was Christianity. And we'll get to that in a little bit. I mentioned that the Greeks had a problem becoming united, and it was mainly because of geography, topography. Have you guys ever been to Greece? I really want to go. Is it as cool as I think it is?
Yeah, it is.
It's pretty amazing.
Yeah. The Greeks, I know they're pros and all that, but the Greeks just, they look like they're not having fun. Because I'm thinking about Sargon the Greek. Of course, we had Zoroastrianism and a number of other monotheistic religions. Well, make sure you know the main Greek gods, too. Remember Zoroastrianism? That was the main god, Ahura Mazda. And it was a fight between good and evil at the end of the world would come.
And we kind of use Christianity as.
Yeah, we did. Yeah, we did. Zoroastrianism is still practiced in some parts of the world. It's kind of small, but so Greece had a thing going against it for unification. A lot of the Oriental countries, and I'm thinking especially of China, had something going for it that made it easier to create an empire. What was that?
Like the whole, like all the same.
You got one piece of the whole. Keep going. And it was, yeah, they were all Chinese. The cultures were that different. Very, very homogeneous culture. And whenever we see a situation like this, we see it's a lot easier to unify large areas. Russia, on the other hand, didn't have that advantage, especially when they got up into the steppes, places like that. But the advantage they had was it was so underpopulated.
With being homogeneous, the emperor would reflect through everybody else. Is that kind of the idea?
Well, I mean, the thing is that the cultures are pretty much the same already. So when you move into a new territory, you're not asking people to start thinking in a different way.
They're just kind of expecting them to follow what they already know.
With the ideas of the good of the group instead of the good of the individual and stuff like that. And don't forget Confucianism. With that wonderful model of a strong patriarchal family, and you translate that into a strong patriarchal country, and you're going to have a really, really, really strong dynasty. Nobody's going to, the thought of being a non-conformist isn't going to cross anybody's mind. So we go through that. Of course, our friends over in Egypt are going through their things. We have a whole bunch of dynasties. Actually, they had one attempt at monotheism that lasted through the reign of one whole pharaoh. They had their gods too. You probably ought to know some of their names. You probably ought to know Isis, Osiris, and Ra. Ra was the head guy. Who was he? He was the sun god. Yeah. Depending on the dynasty, he was also called Aton. The Greeks start spreading out, and they start setting up little establishments on the Italian peninsula, and all of a sudden Rome starts popping up. They go through a Republican period. Yeah.
Wasn't there though?
Was when monarchies.
Takhenaten was his name, and stuff. Nefertiti was his wife. Yeah. He changed his name when he tried to institute monotheism. It wasn't popular. He had a lot of resistance, and as soon as he died, they dug up the other gods and started putting them back on the walls.
Rome loved Greek culture.
Rome loved Greek culture, as I've said. You know, you can always, if you don't know much Roman mythology, all you got to do is look at the Greek mythology and change the names. Athena to the third Minerva, Mercury to Hermes, all that stuff. The Romans had a bunch more gods. The first major problem was with the great traders, Carthage. Phoenicia.
Rome's first great problem.
Yeah. They go into the Phoenician Wars. And this is about when things start changing, if you will, a little bit from, this is the period of transition between the Republic and the Empire. There was a great Carthaginian general who tried the backdoor approach. He snuck into Europe and brought, at that time, one of the most terrifying war machines known to man, the elephant. Brought his herd of elephants over the Apennine Mountains. You want to see this? Hannibal, yeah.
Who said that? Oh, no.
Why, did you want to say it?
Maybe.
The Punic Wars, as they're known, get the name from Phoenicia. They go on for quite a while, but that's maybe the main reason why Rome starts really building a strong military. Their generals start gathering a lot more power. Their military becomes not only very, very structured, but very, very efficient. With the centurions, so the centurion is a member of a company that's 100 strong, and they invent all of those new war tactics, the journal that we talked about, all that other cool things. And as these armies grow in power, it's the generals that start getting the power. Because the armies, boy, not unlike the marauding hordes later on, the generals go, well, let's go take some territory, we'll grab all the booty, and we'll split it up. And since the general is the guy that's responsible for distributing all the spoils after a victory, he becomes the real leader that the men look to. This is exactly what happens with the rise of Julius Caesar. Caesar heads off to the Rhine, and he's running a bunch of, and that's not his first campaign, it's actually in Egypt. But he gets over to the Rhine, he hits some pretty tough characters. The Celts, yeah, Celts. He is finally victorious. What is that territory named? What are the Romans called? Remember I told you the horrors of taking second year Latin? You have to translate Caesar's letters back home. All Gaul is divided into three parts. His wars in the Gaul, with the Gauls. He comes back. And there is a lot of strife going on in Rome right now between a number of the other generals. The Romans have a law. That law says that generals have to disband their army before they cross a small tributary just north of Rome. It's called the Rubicon. And Caesar doesn't do it. He takes his army intact into Rome, saying that he needs to put down the civil war. And this is really where Caesar ends up with all his power. Rubicon? How refreshing. Somebody has to spell something I can spell.
Whenever I hear Rubicon, I think of those ugly cars.
What's what?
Those cars, you've never seen the...
Oh, they named the car the Rubicon?
Yeah.
Jeep or Chrysler did, yeah.
Yeah. It's just a big box.
I wonder about car names.
That can make my Toyota.
Yeah,
Oh, is it?
you know, and I think the one that was probably the best name is the Ford Aspire, because that baby was trying to aspire to be a car.
Trying is the key word.
Didn't do a very good job.
He said that he was going to go in and put down a civil war. Yeah. Julius Caesar probably would have been considered the first emperor, except for what? He got assassinated, yeah. Yeah. But he was really the one that brought Egypt under control of Rome. Egypt was independent in name only. Remember, he shacked up with Cleopatra. Had a son, Octavian. And Octavian is actually the one that knocks our friend Mark Antony off the board.
Is Octavius or Octavian?
Octavian. You might see it both ways. I've seen it Octavius.
I know that.
What's he mainly known for? Anybody remember?
For C-section?
Yeah, for C-section. It's funny how people get remembered.
Wasn't the calendar made by like Octavius for October, July, June? Is that
Yeah, but that was the Augustan calendar.
Oh.
And they revised it a bunch of times.
So is he known
The
for
Julian calendar is where we finally end up. He was one of the last there.
Is he known for the C-section because
Because he was born by C-section.
Oh, okay. Was it like the first known to...
Probably.
Yeah, okay.
Remember, the Egyptians were far advanced in medicine. They were way up there. Yeah, they were involved. They'd been involved with people for 1,000 years. So they kind of knew what was going on. About this time, of course, the Roman Empire is reached pretty much its limits. Goes from Palestine in the Middle East all the way to where? to Scotland. Because Hadrian comes along and builds a wall to keep all of those pesky Celts out of it. Oh, yeah, they're just arguing along.
So it starts where and ends up in
Palestine.
Palestine. It was not done.
That's to the extent of the Roman Empire. Augustus comes along, he's recognized as the first emperor. We go through a whole bunch of emperors, and you will be happy to know that you don't have to remember. You probably ought to remember one. The emperor you probably ought to remember is the guy that made Christianity the state religion. Who was that? Because his mom was a
Constantine.
Constantine.
Yes. You got that one. We got that one out of the way. We have to worry about that. Talk about that. Of course, as the church starts garnering power, sooner or later there's going to be dissidents. And throughout the history of the church, there have been councils and what have you called together to define and clarify, and this is true of every church, what the Catholic Church called canon law. What was the first one? Do you remember? Nicaea. Yeah, that was where they formulated the Nicene Creed, which most Christian religions still use today. Let's not forget other religions. We talked about Confucianism. We probably really, the other one we need to talk about is Hinduism. Hinduism is still the majority religion in India. I don't have to know a lot about it. It's kind of there are probably as many flavors of Hinduism as there are Hindus.
Yeah.
They don't have a real strict doctrine. As a matter of fact, there are some branches of Hinduism that claim to be monotheistic. It really isn't. But what's the big thing about Hinduism? About the reincarnation of the caste system. The idea that you are born and then you die and then you are born again. You are born into a particular caste. You don't move up, you don't move down. That's where you gain good karma and bad karma. And if you are good and you keep moving up, yes. If you're good and you keep moving up in caste, when you finally get to be a Brahmin, who is the priest, and you die again, you don't have to come back anymore. You have reached nirvana, which is what everybody wants to do. Of course, if you keep getting bad, pretty soon you're going to end up as a cow. Nirvana is the sublime state after you don't come back on earth anymore.
I thought in India they worship cow.
That's why. Because they don't anymore. But you don't know whether that's a cow or a cat, maybe.
So that's why they wouldn't eat beef?
And again, not all sects of Hinduism felt that way.
Right. Well, yeah, there's something like you said.
Remember that Buddhism and Hinduism are very closely related.
Hinduism dates a lot further back than Buddhism, doesn't it?
I'm not so sure. I think that Hinduism already helped up to Buddhism.
Okay, so